When peaceful worlds faced a storm, the emergency beacon cut through the peaceful morning air of New Haven Colony like a blade through silk. Colony Administrator Zara Kelani felt her secondary heart skip as the urgent tone filled her office. Her compound eyes quickly scanned the incoming data stream, and what she saw made her pale blue carapace darken with fear. 500 ships. 500 Vorthan raider vessels approaching their system, bearing the crimson markings of the coalition. Zara's mandibles clicked nervously as she processed the numbers. New Haven was a mining colony, home to 8 million Kalari who had never known war. Their orbital defenses consisted of mining platforms and cargo haulers. Against a raider fleet, they might as well be throwing rocks at a storm. The communication array crackled to life as reports flooded in from the outer monitoring stations. The raiders would arrive in 60 hours. 60 hours until 8 million peaceful souls faced slavery, death, or worse. Zara's six-fingered hands trembled as she activated the emergency protocols that had never been used in the colony's 20-year history. Within minutes, the colony's council chamber filled with frightened voices. Representatives from each district gathered around the holographic display showing the approaching threat. Elder Vex, whose wisdom had guided the colony for decades, spoke first. How long until the Federation response arrives? He asked, though his tone suggested he already feared the answer. Zara consulted her datapad, hoping against hope that the numbers had changed. They hadn't. Ambassador Rune's office reports that the Federation can spare 15 patrol vessels. They'll arrive in 72 hours. The chamber fell silent. 15 ships against 500 was not a battle. It was a massacre waiting to happen. 15 ships, whispered Council Member Thara, her voice breaking. My children, my grandchildren, what will become of them? The weight of leadership pressed down on Zara's shoulders like the crushing depths of New Haven's deepest mines. She had led these people through natural disasters, equipment failures, and resource shortages. But this was different. This was war, and her people knew nothing of war. What about the other powers? Asked Elder Vex. The Zentoran Empire? They. Crystalline Confederacy? Zara shook her head. The Zentorans are dealing with border disputes in the Outer Rim. The Confederacy considers this outside their sphere of influence. We are alone, except for those 15 Federation patrol ships. The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Some suggested immediate evacuation, but everyone knew their cargo vessels could never transport 8 million people in 60 hours. Others spoke of surrender, but the Vorthan coalition was notorious for taking slaves and leaving dead worlds. Behind, there was no mercy to be found in their crimson holes. What about the humans? The voice came from the back of the chamber, spoken by young council member Kess. A strange silence fell over the gathering. The humans? Elder Vex's mandibles clicked uncertainly. They are newcomers to the galaxy. Their world is classified as dangerous. Their people are few. What could they possibly offer? Everyone in the chamber had heard stories about humans. They came from a world called Terra, a planet so hostile that galactic survey teams refused to visit without full environmental suits. The few humans who had ventured into galactic society were strange creatures, small by many standards, but with an intensity that made others uncomfortable. Their eyes held something that civilized species had forgotten, the look of predators. I have heard they have ships, Kess insisted, and they have been expanding their territory. Zara felt a spark of desperate hope. Does anyone have contact with human representatives? The chamber was quiet for a moment before Elder Vex spoke reluctantly. There was a human diplomatic vessel at Starport Nexus last month. They were conducting trade negotiations with the border worlds. It was a slim chance, but it was chance nonetheless. Zara made the decision that would change the course of galactic history. Send a message to the human government. Tell them we need help. Tell them 8 million peaceful people will die if they refuse. The message traveled across space, carried by subspace communicators toward the edge of galactic civilization, where humanity had established its small but growing presence. On the diplomatic vessel Endeavour, Captain Elena Santos received the distress call while reviewing trade agreements with her senior staff. Elena was typical of the humans who had ventured into galactic society, compact but athletic, with dark hair and the intense brown eyes that made other species nervous. She had been born on Terra, had survived its crushing gravity, violent weather, and the 1,000 daily dangers that made her world notorious. To her, space was peaceful and predictable. Captain, her communications officer reported, "We are receiving a priority distress call from New Haven Colony in the Kalari system. They're requesting immediate military assistance." Elena studied the tactical data that accompanied the plea. 500 Vorthan raiders against a peaceful mining colony. The numbers were stark, the outcome predictable. She had seen raider attacks before. They left nothing but ash and empty worlds behind. "What's the Federation response?" she asked. 15 patrol ships arriving after the raiders. Elena was quiet for a long moment. In the galactic political arena, New Haven was insignificant. 8 million Kalari meant little to powers that counted their populations in the trillions. But Elena remembered her training, remembered the oath she had taken when she accepted her commission in the Terran diplomatic corps, to protect the innocent wherever they may be. "Send a reply," she ordered. "Tell them help is coming." Her communications officer looked confused. "Should I tell them what we're sending, Captain? They're asking for specific numbers." Elena smiled grimly. "Tell them we'll handle it." Back on New Haven, Zara read the human response to the gathered council. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. "Handle it?" Elder Vex clicked his mandibles nervously. "What does that mean? How? Many ships are they sending?" "It doesn't say," Zara replied, studying the message again. "They just said help is coming." As word spread through the colony, reactions were mixed. Some felt relief that someone had answered their call. Others worried that the mysterious humans might be sending a single patrol ship out of diplomatic courtesy. Children asked their parents what humans looked like, and parents gave answers based on stories and rumors rather than fact. Meanwhile, Elena's message traveled deeper into human space, reaching Terra Defense Command buried beneath the mountains of Luna. Admiral Marcus Cross received the report in his war room, surrounded by displays showing human fleet positions. Across known space. Cross was a veteran of humanity's expansion into the galaxy. He had seen what happened to peaceful worlds when raiders came calling. More importantly, he had spent years watching the galaxy's major powers treat humanity as insignificant newcomers, never suspecting the true extent of human military capability. New Haven Colony, he mused, studying the tactical situation. 8 million civilians against 500 raiders. The Federation response is pathetic, his aide reported. 15 ships that will arrive too late to matter. Cross nodded grimly. The galactic powers had grown soft, their militaries designed for ceremony rather than war. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology or exceed their determination. They had never faced humans. Recommendations? Cross asked his staff. "The Terra Defense Fleet completed war games last week," reported Captain Zhou. "All ships are supplied and ready for deployment. We could have a task force at New Haven in 50 hours. Cross considered the political implications. Humanity had been careful to hide its true military strength, presenting itself as a minor power interested only in trade and exploration. Deploying the Terra Defense Fleet would reveal capabilities that had taken decades to develop in secret. How many ships would we need? he asked. Against 500 raiders? Honestly, sir, 50 ships would be overkill. But if we're going to make a statement, ... Cross smiled. The galaxy had ignored humanity. For too long, had dismissed them as primitives from a dangerous world. Perhaps it was time to correct that misconception. Deploy the entire Terra defense fleet, he ordered. Full deployment. 300 ships. The war room erupted in controlled activity as orders flashed across human space. The Terra defense fleet was humanity's secret weapon, a force designed to protect their homeworld and colonies from any threat the galaxy might present. Each ship had been built using technology developed in Terra's harsh environment, crewed by people who had evolved under the pressure of a world that tried to kill them daily. On Mars, the massive shipyards that had been disguised as industrial facilities revealed their true purpose. Construction bays opened like mechanical flowers, revealing warships that had never been seen by alien eyes. The dreadnought Indomitable led the formation, a ship designed to single-handedly engage and tire. Fleets dot as the Terra Defense Fleet prepared for deployment. Captain Elena Santos transmitted one final message to New Haven Colony. Help is coming, she repeated. Hold on. But she didn't tell them what was coming. She didn't mention the 300 warships now moving through hyperspace. She didn't explain that humanity had been preparing for this moment since they first ventured into the galaxy. In the depths of space, the Vorthan raiders continued their approach, confident in their overwhelming numbers and brutal reputation. Warlord Dex commanded the fleet from his flagship Blood Harvest, a vessel that had participated in the destruction of 17 worlds. He had never heard of humans, had never encountered ships from the Deathworld called Terra. The raiders were in for the shock of their lives. On New Haven, Administrator Zara stood on the observation deck of the colony's central tower, watching the stars and hoping that somewhere among them, help was truly coming. She had gambled the lives of 8 million people on the promise of a species she barely understood. In 30 hours, she would discover that humans always kept their promises. Asterisk, when Deathworlders answer the call space around New Haven Colony rippled, with the distinctive distortion patterns of ships dropping out of hyperspace. Administrator Zara Kalani stood in the colony's command center, her compound eyes fixed on the tactical display as contact after contact appeared on the sensors. At first, she felt relief, then confusion, then awe that bordered on terror. How many ships? She asked her sensor operator, her voice barely above a whisper. The young Kalari's mandibles clicked nervously as he recalibrated the sensors for the third time. Administrator, I'm reading 300 vessels. 300 human vessels? The command center fell silent except for the hum of electronic systems. 300 ships. The humans had sent a fleet larger than anything the Galactic Federation had deployed in 50 years. Zara's secondary hearts hammered against her carapace as she processed the implications. Ship classifications? She managed to ask. Unknown. Configurations, Administrator. The computer cannot identify their designs. Energy signatures are ... unprecedented. 20 light minutes away, Warlord Vex received similar readings aboard his flagship. The scarred Vorthan commander studied the sensor data with growing unease. His species had built their empire on superior numbers and overwhelming firepower, but the unknown fleet that had just arrived changed the mathematical certainty of his victory. Status report, he growled, his voice carrying the harsh undertones that made his species feared across the galaxy. 500 ships in our fleet, Warlord. The unknowns number 300. We still have numerical superiority. Dex nodded, but something about the human formation troubled him. His raiders were spread out in the traditional pattern, designed to intimidate enemies and maximize coverage of escape routes. The human ships had arranged themselves in tight tactical formations that spoke of discipline and professional military doctrine. "Open a channel to the unknown fleet," he ordered. It was standard practice to demand surrender before battle. Most civilized species preferred to negotiate rather than fight, especially when facing overwhelming odds. The response came from the lead human vessel, a massive ship that dwarfed anything in Nex's fleet. The voice that emerged from the speakers was calm, controlled, and utterly without fear. "This is Admiral Marcus Cross of the Terra Defense Fleet. Vorthan vessels, you are in violation of galactic accords regarding attacks on civilian populations. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Dex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. "Human fleet, you are outnumbered 5-3. Withdraw now, and we will allow you to leave unharmed. Refuse, and we will add your ships to our trophy collection." The human response chilled every being who heard it. "Vorthan fleet, you seem to have miscounted. You have 500 ships. We have 300 ships and 300 very angry humans who don't like bullies." Before Dex could respond, his tactical officer reported something impossible. "Warlord, the human ships are accelerating toward us. They're not running." Dex stared at his displays in disbelief. Every rational species in the galaxy understood that numerical inferiority meant retreat or negotiation. The humans were doing neither. They were attacking. Admiral Cross stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the raider fleet through displays that showed every enemy vessel in perfect detail. His ship was a product of humanity's deadliest environment, built to survive. Forces that would crush conventional vessels. Its weapons had been designed to destroy asteroids that threatened Terra's orbital facilities. Against pirate ships, they would be devastating. "All ships, this is Admiral Cross," he announced over the fleet communication channel. "Today we show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens innocent people. Today we remind them why Terra is called a death world." The Terra Defense Fleet opened fire at extreme range, their weapons reaching across space with precision that defied galactic understanding of combat doctrine. Human ships had been designed to operate in Terra's chaotic solar environment, where cosmic storms and radiation fields required split-second timing and perfect accuracy. Against static targets in open space, human gunnery was impossibly precise. The first salvo destroyed 27 Vorthan ships in 4 seconds. Warlord Dex watched in horror as his vessel simply vanished, consumed by energy beams that seemed to punch through shields and armor like they weren't there. "Return fire," he screamed. "All ships, concentrate fire on their flagship." The Vorthan fleet responded with the fury of 500 ships, filling space with energy bolts and missiles. The barrage was enough to level a city, focused on the human dreadnought that led their formation. The weapons struck the Indomitables shields and stopped, absorbed by defensive systems designed to protect ships traveling through Terra's Van Allen radiation belts. Captain Maria Santos commanded the destroyer, lightning on the fleet's left flank. Her ship was smaller than the dreadnoughts, but faster and more maneuverable. She had been born on Terra, had learned to pilot atmospheric craft through hurricanes and solar storms. Space combat was almost relaxing by comparison. "Target the raiders." "At coordinates 77 Alpha," she ordered her weapons officer. "Light them up." The Lightning fired its main batteries, weapons that had been developed to vaporize space debris in Terra's orbital lanes. 3 more Vorthan ships died in spectacular explosions that painted space with their wreckage. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Human ships moved with precision that seemed impossible, their weapons finding targets with accuracy that defied explanation. Every shot was calculated, every maneuver designed for maximum tactical advantage. Lieutenant Commander James Park led a squadron of human fighters from the carrier Titan. His pilots had trained in Terra's atmospheric storms, dodging lightning bolts and navigating through winds They could tear conventional aircraft apart. Against Vorthan interceptors, they were like wolves among sheep. Asterisk. All fighters. This is Ranger Leader, Park announced over the squadron channel. Remember, these people threaten children. Make them regret it. The human fighters swept through the Vorthan formation like a plague of metal locusts. Their weapons were smaller than ship-mounted systems, but devastatingly effective against fighter craft and small vessels. Vorthan pilots who had terrorized merchant convoys found themselves facing opponents who had learned to fight in conditions that would kill most beings. On his flagship, Warlord Dex watched his fleet disintegrate with growing panic. In 20 minutes of combat, he had lost over 100 ships, while the human fleet remained virtually untouched. The mathematical certainty of victory had become a nightmare of systematic destruction. "Sir, our shields are failing," reported his tactical officer. "Human weapons are overloading our defensive systems." Dex stared at his displays, trying to understand how the battle had turned so completely against him. The humans fought like they had been born for war, their tactics precise and their weapons brutally effective. But more than that, they fought with a fury that spoke of deep personal conviction. Admiral Cross watched the battle from his command chair, noting the efficiency with which his fleet was dismantling the Raider force. Each human ship captain had been handpicked for this mission, selected for their skill and their understanding of what was at stake. They were not just fighting an enemy. They were making a statement that would echo across the galaxy. "Sir, the enemy is attempting to regroup," reported his tactical officer. "Negative," Cross replied calmly. "Press the attack. I want survivors for questioning, but I want their fleet completely disabled." The Terra Defense Fleet adjusted its formation and continued the systematic destruction of the Raider fleet. Human ships moved through the battle space like predators, their crews working with the efficiency of beings who had evolved on a world where hesitation meant death. Captain Elena Santos, observing from her diplomatic vessel at a safe distance, watched the battle with professional admiration. She had known her people were capable fighters, but seeing the Terra Defense Fleet in action was still impressive. Every ship moved with purpose, every weapon fired with deadly precision. The battle lasted 4 hours, though the outcome had been decided in the first 20 minutes. When the firing finally stopped, the Vorthan Raider fleet existed only as wreckage floating in space and prisoners aboard human vessels. Not a single human ship had been destroyed, though several bore the scars of combat. Warlord Dex found himself a prisoner aboard the Indomitable, staring at Admiral Cross with eyes that held no comprehension of what had happened. The human commander studied his captive with calm professionalism. "How?" Dex asked in broken galactic standard. "We had more ships. We had superior numbers." Cross nodded thoughtfully. "You had more ships," he agreed. "But we had better ships, better training, and better reasons to fight. Most importantly, you made the mistake of threatening innocent people. That tends to make humans very focused." On New Haven Colony, Administrator Zara watched the battle's end with emotions she couldn't name. Relief that her people were safe. Certainly, gratitude toward the humans who had saved them. But also a new understanding of what humanity represented in the galactic community. Administrator, her communications officer reported, were receiving a message from the human fleet. The message was simple and direct. "New Haven Colony, this is Admiral Cross. The threat has been eliminated. We'll maintain a protective patrol until Federation forces arrive. No one will harm your people." The news spread through the colony like wildfire. 8 million Kalari who had faced slavery or death were safe. Children played in the streets, while their parents wept with relief. But among the celebrations, a new awareness was growing. The humans were not the minor power the galaxy had believed them to be. The implications of the battle reached far beyond New Haven. news of the human victory spread through galactic communication networks, carried by traders and diplomats to every corner of known space. The Terra Defense Fleet had destroyed 500 raider ships without losing a single vessel. The mathematical impossibility of it challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. In council chambers across known space, military, advisors scrambled to reassess their understanding of human capabilities. The species from the Deathworld had revealed themselves to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Their ships were more advanced, their tactics superior, and their commitment absolute. Admiral Cross stood in his ready room aboard the Indomitable, composing his report to Terra Defense Command. The battle had been a complete success, but its consequences would ripple through galactic politics for decades to come. Humanity had announced its presence as a major power in the most dramatic way possible. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving requests for diplomatic meetings from 17 different governments. They all want to discuss enhanced cooperation with humanity." Cross smiled grimly. For years, the galactic powers had treated humanity as newcomers to be ignored or patronized. They had assumed that beings from a dangerous world would be primitive and disorganized. Today, they had learned the truth about what evolution on a death world could produce. Captain Elena Santos received new orders from Terra. Establish formal diplomatic relations with New Haven Colony and negotiate mutual defense agreements with other peaceful worlds. Humanity was no longer hiding its capabilities. The galaxy would have to adjust to a new reality. On New Haven, Administrator Zara stood once again on the observation deck of the colony's central tower. But now, instead of watching empty stars and hoping for rescue, she observed the human patrol ships that maintained their protective formation around her world. The humans had not only saved her people, they had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The raiders would think twice before attacking peaceful worlds, knowing that the humans might respond. The Galactic Federation would have to acknowledge that a new major power had emerged from the edges of known space, and countless innocent beings across the galaxy could sleep more safely, knowing that somewhere among the stars, the descendants of Terra's harsh world stood ready to defend them. The humans had kept their promise. Help had come, in a form that no one could have imagined. The galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.